Hey guys, welcome to Double Shot of Steelers. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, soon to be joined by Chris Halleck on the program, and soon to be getting more of your, hopefully, questions, comments, criticisms, whatever you got than usual, because we're not going to be having a show tomorrow. Going to Philadelphia tonight to cover Pirates versus Phillies over the weekend. It's really challenging logistically to do this particular program somewhere remotely. Plus, actually, I'll have access to the baseball club around that time, and you get it. We've done a lot of shows lately. We can skip one. And then this show will be back on next Monday. So whatever it is that you have, we're going to kind of do like a summary type of episode today of where our general feelings are on the state of the team, as hard as that is to figure out. And here's what I mean by that. You want there to be something, some sense for where the team is right now. One of the things that happens every time the schedule gets released, for example, is that everyone says, well, how good do you think they're going to be? How many wins do you see here? Now we have it. So, well, how many wins do you think it'll be if Mason Rudolph is the quarterback? How many do you think if it's Aaron Rodgers? To which I'll come back and say, how many do you think it'll be once we see who this second wide receiver is going to be that Omar Khan's going to get? And Omar is going to get this guy, by the way. And I'm not saying that as if he knows who the guy is. I'm saying that I was really, really sold on this over the past weekend. I really believe that they're going to go out and do this. So what happens if you have all of this stuff in the equation, and then you bring them in, even into just not just the receiver, but however it is that you settle the quarterback situation. If you commit to Mason and you say, that's it, we're going all in, we're going to give Mason the offense, we're going to teach it, we're going to not teach, but we're going to have an infusion of the system built around him, which he wasn't able to have actually at any point in his NFL career. And you get it done like that, and you start getting people to commit and say things that are positive, then what's the feel? Then what ends up happening? Then it's a very, very different sense for where the team is. Do you follow me on this, or am I just kind of, ranting? This actually all makes sense in my head. Jay Knudsen says that WR2 is going to be catchy McBlocking pants. And I could actually see this, because whoever it is going to be, in all likelihood, someone very much capable of catching the football, of running routes, but you can take to the bank, based on what you've already seen of the Arthur Smith offense, that it's going to be someone who first and foremost can block at an elite, not good, not very good, not great, elite level for a wide receiver. That's his thing. He needs you out there stretching their defense, and he needs you out there completely eliminating the person that's opposite you. That way, it's 10 on 10 on the inside. There's more room for everybody. There's more grass. There's less people to block. There's less of a chance of, one of these crazy 8, 9, 10, 11 men in the box formations. Phil says that someone's going to be signed to be wide receiver 2 closer to camp. It might be in camp, Phil. It might be in camp. Don't forget that the whole Brandon Ayuk thing took place during camp. And then even after Ayuk pulled the plug on it and stayed with the 49ers, remember all the other names that would pop up after that? Right after everyone said, that's it, no Ayuk, we're done. All kinds of others came up. Now, they didn't get any of them until Mike Williams, a separate story for a separate episode. But what you're looking for here is, well, Danny Blee gets a little ambitious here. They're bringing back Hines Ward. Hines could really catch a football. I really hope that Hines never gets over-labeled for his blocking and toughness, because that would take away from what he was able to do as an actual wide receiver. You don't get 1,000 catches in the league just because you're good at blocking. Brent says, can the Steelers get Trey H instead of wide receiver 2. My guess is Trey H is going to stay exactly where he is, meaning Trey Hendrickson at the Bengals, of course, and that the Bengals are going to be just completely bankrupt at every other position on the field. What an absolute mess they've made of their cap. I understand why. I really do. But they are going to be so bad defensively. And that's with Hendrickson, because they were bad already with Hendrickson. Crazy thing here. Butthole says, good day. If Rodgers signs, what schematic variants do you foresee between 13, 12, and 11 personnel? And how stark a contrast might there be from Rudolph? Ask Rodgers. It's all going to be up to him. That's one of the billion things that I really can't stand about this whole scenario here. He's going to come in and say exactly what he wants. Tomlin's going to give him carte blanche to do that, and it's going to mess up. You guys don't want to hear this stuff anymore. That's actually my answer to that. I think that if you put Mason Rudolph in at quarterback, you're going to have a real symbiosis between all parties. Cody says that the DK's daily shot yesterday was eye-opening. I actually don't remember what it was. Cody, I'm sorry. I do a lot of these. You're going to have to be more specific. Appreciate the contributions from you both. John Gowan says that Hines Ward sacrificed his body for the Steelers. How many concussions do you think he had that were never admitted to? I think they all have them. I just cannot imagine playing in the National Football League at really almost any position. And I do mean any, including the special teamers, the kicking specialists and everything. There's just way too much violent contact, that goes on. Jack Long says, I'd love to know what really happened with Mike Williams. So would he. I mean, Williams, he was a neat personality. Williams was honest with you. He was candid. But at the same time, like, Mike never came close to complaining. Like, if I would say something to him, like, I don't know, just casually, I would say something like, hey, nice to see you actually out on the field, or get the target or something. And he'd go, yeah, how about that? But he had a big smile on his face. It wasn't like, oh, get me out of here. Why did they even bring me here? Whatever. What he would do is every time it came his turn to catch the football, he would make a catch. Notice that? By the way, he made some pretty good catches. No, CJ, there was no injury issue. None whatsoever. You can't make some of the plays that he made. Injury issue. I'm not even talking about the winner in Landover. I'm talking about some of the more acrobatic stuff that he would make later in the season. Just a good football player. Now, Cody says here, or first Carol says, wonder if they came upon Rodgers out in the woods looking for Bigfoot when making the schedule video. I still haven't watched it. Cody says it was about township blitzing. Oh, this is the Deshae Townsend one. Township. You and your autocorrects, everybody. Deshae Townsend and the blitzing. Yeah, I had some crazy numbers in there, huh? I actually was surprised there wasn't as much feedback to that episode as what I'll usually get, but then it wasn't one of those TMZ drama type things. It was just pure football. And so, our views went down and the comments went down. But yeah, it's the media that loves the other stuff, right? That's not how it goes. Yeah, it is Deshae Townsend. I don't have, let me see if I still have those numbers in front of me, and I can share them with everybody here before I bring Chris in, but I don't think that I do. Now, well, anyway, the point of it was, in quick summary, was that the Steelers were blitzing more than you think. They were blitzing, I believe they had the 12th highest blitz rate in the NFL. They just didn't get back there. Okay. And they didn't get back there in large part because of the front, not the edges. And that's one of the many reasons that they ended up flipping some things out here. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Chris Halleck. We're going to do more of this. Just random stuff. Just fire away.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
And Chris Halleck is here. Hi, Chris.
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing.
How you guys doing?
All right. No complaints at all. Our friend X says, in reference to the blitz things, he says, what year, DK? We cannot possibly be talking 24. We are. And Chris, if you want to talk a little bit about the Steelers blitzing, their rate and their effectiveness and what you saw, you'll buy me a little bit of time to go and actually look that data up again.
Yeah. So I remember looking it up, and I was kind of surprised too, because early in the season, they were not blitzing almost at all. But then as the season progressed, they started to blitz more and more. And they were also having Minkah Fitzpatrick play that back 25 yards off the line of scrimmage less often in the second half of the season.
He came
so
up,
that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely something that changed over the course of the season for sure. But like a lot of things that when you this is a really good example, not to try to change course or anything, but this is a really good example of, well, why can't they just change things mid-season? Well, you see how hard it is to do. The game of football is way more complicated than just picking plays in Madden and being able to roll with things. You know, These guys are taught the playbook from the very beginning, and it's always different year to year to year. And making changes on the fly is just not as easy as it sounds. Nowhere near as close.
This is Pro Football Reference, so it's not some abstract arcane thing out there from somebody's basement. It's Pro Football Reference. The Steelers' blitz percentage, and what that means is the rate of times that the Steelers blitzed when the other team's quarterback dropped back. It's not percentage of overall plays. It's percentage of times that the quarterback dropped back, started looking around and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. The Steelers were 12th in the NFL, had the 12th highest blitz rate at 25.9%. Mm-hmm. Now, in addition to that, and this was the part that I think threw everybody, they had the fourth worst quarterback hurry percentage. How often did they actually get back there and make that quarterback uncomfortable, get him to do something he didn't want to do? It was only on 5.8% of those same dropbacks. Okay? Yeah. That's terrible. And if your defense becomes so predictable, and I really think that is the term here, that it's either edge rushers or bust when it comes to when you blitz, this is what's going to happen. This is exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think the other part of that is if you don't have the necessary coverage that you need behind those blitzes up front, it's going to – quarterbacks can pick that apart. You know, you look at certain quarterbacks. I mean, even week one when they were facing the Falcons, you couldn't just blitz Kirk Cousins like crazy because Kirk Cousins is one of those quarterbacks that's really good against the blitz. He'll see the blitz, he'll diagnose it, and he'll get rid of the ball in less than 2 seconds, and no blitz is getting back there that quickly. So he'll get rid of the ball, and it completely negates the blitz. And what blitzes always do is it gives less people back in coverage, whether you're playing man, which is the majority of the time, or if you're running some kind of a zone blitz, there's less guys to cover those zones. And so you've got to figure out a way to, if you're going to blitz, you got to make sure you get back there. The Vikings do it quite a bit under Brian Flores, obviously as a DC there. But the difference is that as a team, they got home way more often.
You got to get home, or else all you're doing is leaving more exposed behind you. That's the only thing you're accomplishing here. But Josh Dobbs brings up bringing Mike Hilton back. Hilton's not a kid anymore. And Hilton hasn't been his best self here for a little bit with the Bengals. He's still a good pro and everything else here, and you wouldn't mind having him on your football team. The question is value and all that other stuff and fit and everything else. But it really emphasizes the point is if you're not getting home from your defensive front, Keanu Benton finished the season with 1.5 sacks.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not going to do it for a guy whose reputation is principally more of a pass rusher than he is of a run stopper. He has to. He absolutely has to get back there. Even if Derek Harmon were to come in and, take his job or take a lot of his snaps or whatever, Keanu still has to get back there. Harmon still has to get back there. Okay, Y.A. Black, I know he's a different type of defensive lineman, but he's got to make his own impact on the Steelers getting back there. And I'm going to take this further here because this is the part that really still doesn't add up for me. How about if your inside linebackers once in a blue moon get back there? Okay?
That's the part that I didn't understand, because Patrick Queen was a really good blitzer with the Ravens. Like, really good blitzer with the Ravens. Like, why is that not being utilized more often?
Roquan. I mean, isn't that the standard line, right? It's only because he's Roquan.
Yeah, no, they've got to figure out some ways. And I'm not saying you have to bring back the old, Dick LeBeau zone blitzes and bring back all those schemes. I mean, I think there's a reason why the majority of teams don't rely on that stuff too often. Not saying it's completely gone, but it's definitely not as prevalent as it used to be. And that's because, offenses have changed to better combat that. And so you got to figure out ways to get your best pass rushers back to the quarterback. And Patrick Queen was able to do that with the Ravens. I mean, I'm not saying you have to copy from your arch rival or anything like that, but maybe take a look and see what they did and see if there's some ways that you can best utilize that so that you can best utilize Queen, who you invested a good amount of money in.
The other thing you could do, Chris, you could not let Landon Roberts walk away.
Yeah.
Make sense of that. And don't tell me Malik Harrison is his replacement. And don't tell me that you could have that much confidence in Cole Holcomb's knee after what happened to it that you say, yeah, just let our only guy who's capable of getting to the backfield from the inside linebacker position, just let him walk away for peanuts.
Yeah, I think the only part when it comes to Cole Holcomb is that he is rehabbed. I mean, he's rehabbed from the very beginning with the team, not just like in Pittsburgh, but at the facility.
Physically, right.
And so they have a really, really, really good idea of where he is physically. Better than almost anybody else possibly can. And so with them moving on from Roberts, and they could have easily just cut Holcomb and saved a good amount of cap space. And instead they worked something out so that they still cleared some cap space, but they are, with the way the depth chart is set up, they are clearly committing to him as like at least a number 3, if not being in a rotation with Peyton Wilson as the number 2 linebacker there. I think that they have a lot of confidence that he can be a real contributor on defense.
So here's another one. We're going to go into like myth busting mode here on the defense. You ready for this? Where would you say, not you, Chris, where would you say that the Steelers would have ranked in missed tackles in 2024? Simple stat. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's not advanced. It's not this or that. Where would you say, after watching the Steelers in 2024, the entirety of the season, that they ranked in the NFL in missed tackles?
I think, honestly, like in terms of few, I think like 10, like top 10 fewest. I don't think they missed a lot of tackles last year.
You ready?
Yeah.
You sitting down?
Yeah.
Number 1.
Like fewest?
Fewest.
Yeah.
They were the best defense in the NFL when it came to missed tackles. They had 69 for the whole season. The second fewest, the Ravens at 76, then the Broncos at 78, then the Vikings at 79, then I'm reading these names for a reason, then the Commanders at 80, then the Lions at 85. You get the idea. These were the good teams.
Yeah.
Okay? These were the good teams. And the Steelers had the fewest missed tackles in the National Football League in the 2024 season. Now, part of that is just because they happened to employ Deshaun Elliott.
That's what Shaka Steele just says here.
Who missed 3 all year.
Yeah.
He had 111 attempts and 108 tackles. It's just as unbelievable as the best percentages in the history of NFL Next Gen Stats as an individual. They were a very good tackling team. So one of the things that you have to do, I'm not trying to put a rosy spin on this. I think what you have to do is when you're addressing problems, or even just like we are conversing about them, make sure you're dealing with the facts. Make sure you're dealing with real things. That'll allow everybody to process what's happening most accurately. Does that make sense, Chris? So they do need to get back there, and it can't just be TJ. And now, is it enough to just say, well, TJ needs to move around the line of scrimmage because they're chipping him and whatever else here? Do you really think they're going to do a lot of moving TJ around? Can you picture that in your mind's eye? Can you picture number 90 bouncing around the line of scrimmage?
Not a whole bunch, but I think it's going to happen. But I think it's going to happen more often than people think. I mean, it's one thing for Tara Lawson or somebody else to say that this is something we're going to think about. When you heard TJ not only say it, but say it with some pretty serious conviction.
Strong terms, yes.
Yeah, I was like, okay, he might be serious about this. Like, you might actually see TJ move around. Now, do I think that he's going to be spending like only 60% of his snaps at his typical spot on the left side? No, I don't. I think he's going to still be there majority of the time. And let's not pretend that TJ Watt hasn't been chipped for years. It's not like this was a brand new development last year that caused him to have only 11.5 sacks as opposed to, flirting with 20 or even tying the all-time record as he did a few years ago. But at the same time, like, you got to figure out some ways to keep offenses on their heels, and because teams will always shift protection to TJ's side. And so if you happen to put TJ in the middle where he's straight over the center, then you've got to figure out, okay, what are we doing with protection? Now, all of a sudden, does that give Cam Hayward an advantage with where he's lined up? Or does it give Alex Highsmith a better advantage if he has a one-on-one, or is Derek Harmon or whoever else might be blitzing? It changes things, and it makes the offense have to adjust for maybe the way that they're game planning for this defense.
It's a pretty fair point that's brought up here by James Fairfield. He says, but how far downfield were those tackles? Now, if you're being cynical here, and I'm not saying that in a critical way, James, because, the way they ended up, they've deserved their cynicism here.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at that particular concept, you're most likely talking about just looking at your list and seeing where the tackles came from. Okay. Patrick Queen led the team. You always want your main inside linebacker doing that. Even in the year 2025, he had 129. Deshaun Elliott, fantastic season. Already mentioned 108. Minka, 96. And a lot
when
of that
playing was 25 yards off the line of scrimmage, still doing
right. That's not ideal, but Minka did move up, as Chris pointed out later in the season. Peyton Wilson came in next at 78. That's also healthy. Cam, 71. Very, very good figure. Interior lineman here. Joey Porter Jr., 70. Now you're getting kind of like, you don't want to see the corners getting in on that, right?
Yep.
TJ was 61. By the way, go check out Chris's work on TJ today at the Chalk Talk. It's really good stuff. It's about stuff that TJ does that is not sacking the quarterback. Underappreciated. Then Landon at 46, Alex Highsmith at 45, Beanie at 45. See, that's one that you don't like. Okay. Larry O at 41. Now you're getting to a number that's way too low for somebody up front. By the way, notice a name I'm not saying yet? That's right, pal. Keanu Benton, 36.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not going to cut it.
So were they good at tackling? Yes. Were too many of them probably a little bit too far downfield? Also, yes. That's the way to add context to the conversation, James. That's good stuff. We keep getting smarter here by the minute.
Yeah. And the one really good thing, and I even brought it up on that Chalk Talk with TJ, is that PFF has certain stats that you can look at. For example, in run defense, TJ, just because I know it because I recorded the Chalk Talk this morning, his average depth per tackle on all running snaps was 1.7 yards, which that's a pretty good number. It wasn't like top 10 among edge rushers. I don't remember where it ranked, but it was still a pretty good number. You don't want to see that number
He's coming in sideways. He's making the play sideways more often than not. That's what it is.
Yeah.
He's helping out in the middle. He's not just don't come to this side, like playing guard over there or something.
Yeah, like you could, for example, you could look at Patrick Queen, for example. Okay, he led the team in tackles. Okay, he should lead the team in tackles. But what was his average depth per tackle? And I can look this up. What was his average depth per tackle as opposed to other inside linebackers in the league? And where does that rank on in front of him? Because the better the front plays, the easier it is for the linebackers. The quicker they can converse, whether it's, crashing a gap, if it's a gap scheme, or if they're reading a zone, whatever it is, like they have more time and ability to react to what the running back is doing.
Kyler Michael says, I wish that the Steelers had kept Brian Flores and promoted him to DC, as ended up happening in Minneapolis. He's very good. He's making schemes. He's done a phenomenal job so far up there for the Vikings. And the Steelers, of course, are going to have to deal with that head on over in Ireland. I actually would have liked to see that myself. But the leap that would have taken as it relates to having Mike Tomlin change who he is as a head coach, just it doesn't add up. I mean, we're now looking at it close to 20 years of evidence as to who Tomlin is, and he just does not change that. Not even, we can get into this later in the show, but not even when it comes to traveling overseas.
Yeah, that was kind of surprising to hear that from.
We'll get to that one.
Yeah.
But Flores, I mean, they would have had to redone a lot, not just the schemes, but how they evaluate players, how they're scouting, who they're looking for, what are the types of players that they're drafting. It would have been a massive, massive overhaul.
And here's another thing that people have to consider too, and this is why I think people need to not just give up on Arthur Smith after one season either. When you are evaluating a coordinator, especially in their first year, you have to also understand that coordinator's background and then also look at the personnel that team employs. If Brian Flores wants to play defense a certain way, but who the Steelers have on their roster is it's not a great match for the way Flores really, really wants to coach his defense and coordinate his defense, it might not be a great fit. Like, for example, and the reason why I say Arthur Smith, last year, Arthur Smith didn't really get to do what he wanted to do. And don't say it's because of Russell Wilson, because it wasn't Russell Wilson. It was mainly in the running game. He can't run true wide zone, outside zone principles all like as often as he wants to, because Najee Harris, that's just not his game.
Right.
So you really didn't get to see what Arthur Smith really, really wants to do, at least in terms of a running game. And you didn't really get to see what he wanted to do in passing game because his quarterback doesn't like attacking the middle of the field. So if the personnel doesn't match with the coordinator, and last year's offense is a really good example of that, then if Flores and what the Steelers had, if it wasn't going to be a working marriage, then it just wasn't going to work.
Yeah, we're seeing, explanations here relates to the impact on edge rushers. Teams were not going to let the Steelers defense tee off on them forever. Okay, that wasn't going to be a secret, some industry thing that oh no, it's Pittsburgh week. All they're going to do is come and kill us from the edges. Somebody eventually was going to say, hey, how about if we try something different instead of just serving our quarterback up to them on a platter? How about if we do that? That happens inside the division. The film gets out of what happened inside the division. Everybody starts doing it. This year, 2024, meaning this past year, that film was put forth, and impressively so, in the city of Cleveland. Everyone forgets about that game, but it was there, and it was then. And it was their coordinator that said, here you go, National Football League. Here's how to beat that defense. And everybody took it and ran.
Yeah. Yeah. One really, really big reply to this, and Eric brings it up here. Says, yeah, Chris, but aren't good coaches supposed to tailor their schemes to fit the talent of their players, not the other way around? Yes, and that's exactly what Arthur Smith did last year by not running so much of what he actually wants to do because he doesn't have the personnel to do it. But if you want to run it, like every coordinator, every coach has a way they want to coach. Kyle Shanahan is great at what he does in terms of being an offensive mind because of the way he coaches offense. If you ask him to coach a completely different type of offense, you're not getting the best of that coordinator. So you hire a coordinator to run their offense, but the personnel also has to match. And if it doesn't match, then you're not really getting the best of the coordinator. You're not getting the best of both parties.
Swinging it back to the defense, Chris says, how many times was Keanu on the field without Cam Hayward? Just thinking that the quality of man, make plays. I'm sorry, Chris. Yeah. I'm not dismissing your question here. Okay. I'm dismissing the concept. Okay. Make plays. Everyone says, and they did too when he came in, Keanu's he is a splash guy. He is, wow, this guy, and everybody was singing about him. And then things just didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And you can live with things just didn't happen if you're piling up boring stats like run tackles, getting off your block, doing the routine stuff, the stuff that nobody ever gives you credit for. Didn't happen. Mm-hmm. Didn't happen. Has to happen. And it has to happen independent of all these wonderful new additions, excuse me, that they've had on that defensive line. I know that this subject hardly ever comes up, the Keanu one, okay? Mm-hmm. And I love the kid. I think he's terrific, and I think he does a lot of good things, and I think he can add a lot to this defense, including notably through his athleticism. He's got an ability to go left, right, as well as any interior lineman in the league. I truly believe that. But my goodness, you got to get there. You got to make some plays. You got to get some hurries. You got to get something done.
Yeah, it's definitely a big year for him for sure. He's got to make a jump in year 3. We really need to see a bigger jump in year 2. It didn't happen. He was kind of pretty much the same player he was as a rookie. And listen, in terms of like whether Cam's on the field, not on the field, the Steelers don't want Cam on the field any more than about maybe 70% of the time. They want him as fresh as possible, especially if they can try to keep him fresh for the fourth quarter of games. Not saying that he's going to sit out the entire first quarter or anything like that, but if you can, the more that you can spare Cam and TJ earlier in games so that by the time the fourth quarter comes around and the offensive line, who they play every snap, is tired by the time the fourth quarter comes around, then you have a fresh TJ or fresh Cam. That's going to help you out in terms of your defense. And the only way that can work is if the supporting players, if the other players that are in that rotation can actually play and can actually be productive. And Benton, while he flashes that potential every now and then, the production just has not been there yet.
Has not been there. And if you think about this, on the night of the draft, when the Steelers got Harmon, and Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan came in to meet with us in the room. Mm-hmm. But there was a separate interview that Tomlin did on the TV broadcast, which we don't see or hear in these settings, but I found out about later. Mm-hmm. So maybe anybody who's watching or listening to this show will be more familiar with it than me, but they're talking to Tomlin and asked, when did you decide that the run defense and that was going to become, the top priority? And his response was, and I'm going to get this almost exactly, I would be surprised if I didn't think about it before I even got into the shower meeting in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a pretty powerful quote. Now think about that from the perspective of, all right, so what is he talking about? Who is he talking about? Who's on his roster? That tells me Larry O was sealed before Tomlin got into the shower, and that he had questions and doubts about Keanu Benton before he got into the shower. Mm-hmm. And then he also wondered, as long as we're throwing everybody out here, if there isn't some way that they can get Cam to be fresher and keep Cam healthier. You don't ever criticize Cam. Cam's a yellow jacket in waiting, okay? Yeah. You've got to find a way to make sure that he's only logging 50, 60 snaps, that he's not out there in some blowout or anything like that. You got to make sure that you're keeping him in the best possible conditioning that you can. So that was, I thought, pretty powerful stuff from Tomlin there. But you got to act on it, and you got to get better.
Well, and that's why, whenever I'm down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and I'm not only watching Mike Tomlin and Terry Lawson follow around those defensive tackles almost exclusively, but then I actually get a chance to talk to some of the Steelers people that are there when there aren't cameras around, but anything like that. And they're pretty much telling me, 299 rushing yards on the ground against your rival is gonna wake you up a little bit. It's gonna hit different. That was now, granted, it was a lot more fresh then. That was back in January. That game had just happened a couple of weeks prior. But they absolutely went into this season with a full head of steam of being like, we are not going to be run on like that again. That's just not going to happen.
Even though over the course of the season, they were good against the run.
Yep.
It's a combination of evaluating and appreciating the attrition factor as much as it is, all right, let's just get more talent here, or let's just get younger here. John says, hey, DK, we have Pat Fryermuth, Darnell Washington, and Donald Parham. Muth has good size. Darnell is 6'8". You say that Parham is 6'7". He's actually 6'8". He's just a much skinnier.
Yeah. He's not Darnell Washington.
6'8". He's not Darnell. Okay. No. He says, do we run any 3 tight end sets in the red zone? That's a lot of height. It's a lot of height. It's a lot of leverage. It's a lot of length. Okay. The answer to your question, quite literally, is yes, of course. Arthur will run 3. I mean, he has a goal line offense, and that's what it looks like. So I don't know that, to me, a lot of their goal line issues began and ended with changing quarterback. Okay. I mean, Justin Fields, once you got inside the 10, he was such a threat to be able to run into the end zone that even if everything else went wrong, you would just say, all right, just go get it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yep.
I mean, all of Justin Fields' touchdown runs, which were 5 of them last year, were all in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in maybe tight. They were in tight. And I want to say, I know there were multiple that were improv, like their initial pass plays, and they weren't like, like it was like a really quarterback try. I was like, no, he's actually looking for like it's an actual pass play, and it wasn't there, so he just took off and ran. But I remember one specifically for sure. I think there was a second one. I think his first one of the year, and then the one in Vegas were designed runs. The one in Vegas was really good because they had been doing that toss to Najee all game long, and so they faked the toss to Najee that time, and then Justin bootlegs the other way, and there was just a clear path to the end zone. So, that's a really nice weapon to have in the red zone. And what's really interesting about the Russell Wilson thing not working out in the red zone is that throughout his career, he's been a really good red zone quarterback. That might be one of the biggest mysteries of the 2024 season is why Russell Wilson was not an effective red zone quarterback, because he has been throughout his career.
I just don't think he was effective. I don't know that it was specific to the red zone. I think when you think you're younger than you are and you're trying to escape trouble and you're getting brought down from behind in doing so, there's no pun intended, but it's not easy to run from that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's now the label that you have. So he either has to finally adjust his game to his age, or he's not going to succeed, wherever he is. Where did he end up anyway? I forgot. Oh, the other team.
Yeah.
The other New Jersey team.
Yep.
See, this is what you want, Steelers. You want to just keep piling up old guys like the New Jersey teams do. That's what you want. Go ahead and get one of those. Just be them. They're the model.
At least the Jets were able to outbid the Steelers for Fields, and they're at least giving a younger quarterback a run to see if he has anything.
Right. So it's the Steelers' turn to take the Jets' retread.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
It's the
Kyler Michael says, I agree with DK on this. I don't think that Mike Tomlin can adapt. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Oh, you can teach it. He just doesn't have to accept it, and he won't. You're not going to see. Listen, for however longer Tomlin's going to do this. And none of us can know that. Okay. And we just know that it's going to be his decision.
Yeah.
However long that goes, the last thing he's going to do is undergo some sort of intensive personal overhaul. Mm-hmm. Think about that for a second. He's going to say, all right, for 18 years, I was doing it this way. But you know what? For my last 1 or 2, I'm going to do it like this. Mm-hmm. Not going to happen.
I think there are certain ways he's adapted over the course. I mean, you can't be the same exact coach you were in 2007 as opposed to 2025. But I do think that there are, like, for example, I mean, offensive coordinator hires were not really hires. They were promotion after promotion after promotion. Todd Haley been the only exception. And then after trying to promote a couple of guys and Randy Fichtner and Matt Canada, he was like, screw this. I'm going to get an experienced offensive coordinator. So little things like that. But again, you might want to see a little bit more openness to change.
Dave Black points out, and there's no way we should ever get through any kind of discussion on the Baltimore game without noting the ridiculous scheme and the indefensible failure to adjust until the third quarter. The TJ tackled Derrick Henry so many times when he didn't have the ball. That's because Tomlin and Terrell Austin came up with a scheme. No, they didn't come up with a scheme. They renewed the scheme that they had used in the previous meeting against the Ravens because I guess they thought that the Ravens were stupid and weren't going to adjust to what the Steelers did to them here in Pittsburgh. It's still unbelievable that the film of that game. By the way, that ought to be a Chalk Talk.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking that as we're talking about this is like,
Unto
what
itself.
happened? What
Seriously.
happened?
Just with that though, with that one stupid technique.
Yeah.
And how many times TJ tackled a non-ball carrier just so that Lamar could go, whoa, really?
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Well, I think what they were thinking, and this is me guessing, this is not some sort of, reveal of information or anything, but I think they were thinking that they don't necessarily want Lamar running like an actual designed run that often, because the last thing the Ravens want is for their quarterback to go down with an injury, because if Lamar goes down, their season's gone. Like, they don't have a chance. But when you get into the playoffs, things change, and you gotta do things a little bit more. You gotta play with a little bit more desperation. You gotta play with a little bit more you kind of almost have to throw the rule book out of the way you were playing games throughout the season, because throughout the season, you're just, if you feel like you're in a good place to try to make the playoffs, you just want to make sure that you get into the playoffs and you want to keep everybody as healthy as possible. But once you get into the playoffs, man, you lose and you go home. And I think at that point, they were like, all right, if you're going to let Lamar run, we'll let Lamar run. He'll slide down, avoid the contact. And that was easy pickings for the Ravens in that game. For sure.
Imagine saying, let's just let Lamar run. The PEF says, is it just me or does it seem like a common trend for the Steelers rookies to have sophomore slumps? That would require some research. I mean, just on a feel basis here, the PEF, we can talk about Broderick Jones going backward in year 2. We also can talk about other players, who have been better in year 2. I can tell you that just from an emphasis basis, man, Tomlin pounds year 2. Mm-hmm. It's your second year. This is it, year 2. We expect this from you. Training wheels are off. I'm going to throw in all the Tomlinisms that he gives to them. Okay, to him, year 2 is it's the first year in which you're going to be in full NFL shape. Okay, in his eyes, not mine. And B, it's going to be the first year in which there are no excuses. You don't know the playbook. You're weirded out by the stadiums. You didn't understand your opponent. You didn't get the scheme. You didn't have chemistry with your people around you. All of that's out the window in year 2. Mm-hmm. So it's not because they're not pounding it verbally, but at the same time, if you look at where this team has been over the last couple of years, you have seen a couple of guys go backward, and it has not been good.
No, and then you've seen some guys kind of stagnate. Keanu Benton's one, probably in my eyes. I don't think he regressed in year 2, but I also don't think he took a leap forward. I think he was pretty much about as effective as he was as a rookie. And then Joey Porter Jr., I think he took some strides forward, but I also think he took some steps back, so it kind of evens out a little bit. So I don't want to necessarily call that a sophomore slump either, because I think he's still a very, very much effective cornerback. Just people get frustrated with the penalties. It would take some research to get into that to see, like, okay, what's the issue with year 2? Might be interesting. But then I also think about people like who have missed their rookie seasons, like Calvin Austin, like Corey Trice, and the things that they've done. And I understand Corey Trice wasn't on the field a whole bunch in year 2, but I could tell you right now, man, they are very, very impressed with the way he has handled everything and with the work that he has put in to do everything he possibly can to stay healthy. I think this is a really big year for him.
First name, because I'm not inclined to butcher it here, but the point that's being made here is that Patrick Queen was sick that day in Baltimore. Why not use Mark Robinson? It's not a video game. There's a green dot involved.
Yeah.
Okay. And PQ knew that. And PQ knew that he was not optional. There was nobody else they could put in that position. If he was going to have to get carried out there, he was going to have to get carried out there. Chris, you can explain what the green dot is and why. Why M. Rob would not have been able to do it.
No, the green dot. I mean, you are literally taking the call in from the coordinator and you're communicating to the entire defense. That's not Mark Robinson's job. If at that point you are then putting it on most likely Peyton Wilson, you're not going to ask a rookie to do that. Landon Roberts would be next in line probably, but he's not on the field for enough snaps to play or to wear the green dot, or at least not likely. And anybody who's saying, well, why doesn't Minka do it? Because he's already probably the best coach on the entire team. That's a player. But you guys from the secondary typically don't do that. If you're the main communicator on defense, you have to be able to communicate with the entire defense. And if you are all the way in the front or all the way in the back, that makes it really difficult to communicate with everybody. But if you're the linebacker and you can communicate with both your defensive line and your secondary right behind you, then that's ideal. That's why the vast majority of players who wear the green dot are typically linebackers. And I think like TJ has a funny story. Like he wore the green dot one game, and he's like, never again.
Never again.
Like, never again.
This is hard enough. I don't need to be thinking about other stuff. That's great.
Yeah.
I love it. Luis Javier gets the last word for the day. Says that Mike Tomlin is unwilling to change his failed decisions, and he gets rewarded with a new contract. If a player does the same, he gets cut. I'm through going to bat for the head coach. He needs to show it. He needs to either adjust or not adjust. There's been zero indication of that to date. And understanding there's a long way to go here before they even play real games. But there's been zero indication to date, unless I'm missing something, Chris.
No, the only other thing that I really want people to try to understand it, and this is not defending Tomlin, carrying water for Tomlin, anything like that. But when you look at, because everybody right now, the big thing with Tomlin, the big bugaboo about Tomlin right now is that they haven't won a playoff game since the 2016 season. So January 2017.
That's real.
That's real. Yeah. It's real. It's real. And I'm not saying that that's not, but what happens to coincide with that entire stretch outside of one season is not having a legitimate franchise quarterback. Ben threw his arm out in 2019. You didn't have that in obviously that season. Even when Ben came back in 20 and 21, he was not the same guy. You can look at every single number there is, both traditional stats and advanced metrics. He was not the same quarterback. His EPA plummeted. He was not the same quarterback. And then obviously ever since he retired, they haven't had a quarterback. And it's really, really hard to win in the NFL if you don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, but he's not an innocent bystander in that process, Chris. I mean, no, he's just as involved as anybody else, up to and including Omar Khan and Andy Weidel, when it comes to those types of decisions. So, one could argue also that, he had a quarterback in his fold and didn't recognize it and didn't want to recognize it, even when the quarterback was basically punching him in the face in late 2023. Right? The hot hand, remember?
Yeah,
the hot hand. All right. Guys, we are not going to have a double shot tomorrow because I'm leaving for Philadelphia tonight to cover Pirates versus Phillies at the incorrect end of the Commonwealth. And we will be back with another one of these double shots. It'll be next Monday. All right. So we'll see you all then. All right, let's take care of some business here today and see what all came in here. We're also going to be checking our membership count to see how that's coming along. Our goal is to get to 3,000 by the time the Steelers show up for reporting date in Latrobe. That's going to be in the third week of July. Vic came in with 20 gifts because Vic is just good like that. Ooh, there's our number, 2382, 2,382 memberships. So we're obviously... here comes my math cap. 618 memberships away. Our great friend, the PEF, is celebrating his 2-year anniversary as a member today. Austin came in and dropped a couple of bucks on us. Charles dropped 5. Mr. CJ Jr. dropped 10. Charlie with another 5. Nate Bianco came in with 20. Good for you, Nate. Appreciate that, man. Very, very cool. I always get like a little bit of an extra inflection when I see a name that's not one of the regulars here. William comes in and drops a 5 on us. The crazy Pollock came in with a 5, and I never got to addressing this, and I had intended to. It's just the nature of a live show. I'm going to do it now. He says, DK and Chris, I'm nervous for the secondary. Darius Slay is 100 years old. Wow, that's almost as old as Aaron Rodgers. He was the third best corner on his team behind the rookies, and his numbers keep going down. He's a 2. Don't worry about his numbers unless you're looking at the more advanced numbers. He was a coverage guy. Okay, you want with your coverage guys. Okay, if you think about Darrelle Revis's, I'm not comparing him to Darrelle. Just hear me out. Okay, but if you think about Darrelle Revis's numbers, okay, the single most dominant corner of his generation. Okay, Darrelle was this. Why? No one threw his way. When they did throw his way, there was nothing there. So they would try to surprise every once in a while and go, oh, you know what we're going to do? We're going to throw to that guy that's being covered by Darrelle because they're not expecting that. And Darrelle will be like, yeah, I'm ready for you. Okay. Slay has really, really, really good coverage numbers here. Cody came in, as always, dropping a couple of bucks along with his submissions. Kerry is batting 1,000, I'm pretty sure, for dropping a gift per show. Our great friend Chris Dolnack left $10 there for us, and the butthole came in with a few of those because that's just how the butthole rolls. We just had a kid in here. He has to hear me talking like that.
No, he's out.
The child, really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, that's how the butthole rolls. With this,
Sure,
it look like he's 7 or 8 years old. See what you're doing, butthole?
Butthole is not that dirty.
I mean, it's not ideal. You know,
it's acceptable though.
It's like, yeah, it's not ideal.
It's just the right amount of edge. Just walking on a line and being funny.
Yeah, I'm going to give a special shout today to a couple guys who are in here all the time, in all of our various videos, and also on our website at DK Pittsburgh Sports. That's Jerry Yeager, who always has a kind word for us. The same thing goes for Randy Wagner. I don't ever take you guys for granted. Don't think that I'm ever assuming, oh, yeah, well, you just know Randy and Jerry are going to be here. We totally get it. Mr. CJ has left the uncle's table. Mr. CJ is one of us. Okay. The next guy that we're going to get over here is Shaka Steele. Okay. I'm not crazy about singling people out, but Shaka, you're poking in here from Facebook and whatever else, and we're not going to be, the boss does not want us on Facebook a whole lot longer. Okay, we're doing that now to just kind of spread the word before we get to football season. We need you on YouTube, and we need you becoming a member because you got some really good stuff to say here, and we don't want you missing the members-only videos or whatever. So this is where the peer pressure, and this comes from the rest of you too, you need to start piling up on Shaka Steele. It's just, oh yeah. She says it's mean. It's not mean. This is football.
Facebook sucks. That's motivation enough.
Yeah, that's right. See, that's what it is here. Ian Graves says you got to stay on Facebook. No chance. Because there's no revenue on Facebook, dude.
Also, it sucks.
Chris Dolnack begins the peer pressure. Mr. CJ says, come on, Shaka Steele. So you guys are, this is how it's done. Dead Sea Monster says, don't mess with the boss, Shaka. This is a good point. When she's in a bad mood. You know? Rashawn Fletcher says, called me out like you got me. I love it. Jay Mood says, I haven't signed into my Facebook account in 4 years. That's more recently than most have, my friend. Although there's still just a disturbingly high number of people there. Mm-hmm. I feel the same way about Twitter at this point. It's just the place is pure poison. DK needs an uncle emoji saying we want you.
That's a great idea. Mm-hmm. Well, how does an uncle look like?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to start branding them, you know.
Definitely a mustache.
Yeah, no, we don't want uncle emojis, because that's when you start validating them. You don't want to validate them. They need to become members. You know, like here, give you an example. This is really bad. I shouldn't even share this. Like, where did this one go up here? It was a stay free one.
I can turn the commenting off for uncles.
Oh, did you hear that? Did you hear that threat from over there? I'm telling you, do not mess with her. She says she can actually turn the commenting off for uncles. Ooh. Don't want that. Take your initiative into your own hands the way CJ did. You know? The uncles can't use member emojis. Good point. Alan Collins says, I don't always say much, but I'm always here for you. That's really nice, Alan. Appreciate that. Vic is now bringing it too. All Vic does is try to make things easy for everybody here. Not only does he drop gift memberships on everyone, but he's also like giving them advice and telling them how to do it and everything else. And we've got a real friend in Victory Asher. Casper asks an important question. Is YouTube a separate membership from the app and the website? Yes. And I'm glad you asked that. It's not because we're being greedy or whatever. There's just no way to make them work together. YouTube has its own mechanism, and we have our own. We have a custom app and website. There's nothing we can do to make them all one thing. We've been asked that question multiple times. We appreciate anybody who's following our content wherever it is that we happen to be. I had someone ask just yesterday if we could have a premium level of the podcasts, the audio podcast, because there's some people that don't want to have the ads playing or whatever. It's like, it's yet another platform. That's now Apple and that's Spotify, because we're everywhere.
That's why we made them 99 cents.
And that's the important point she brings up here. That's also why we chose the lowest possible membership rate that you can have at YouTube. Okay, the 99 cents is rock bottom. And that was why, because we didn't want to be charging anybody some kind of crazy figure, especially if they were already subscribed to our website and our app. Anyway, we appreciate you guys. And one more time, there will not be a double shot show tomorrow. We will be back on Monday with another one after I come back from doing some baseball over the weekend in Philadelphia. Everybody take care. Have a good weekend.